Hey there! Thanks for tuning in to Duckbricks. I'm Chris and welcome to a brand new episode of LEGO Awards, the show where I count down the best things and my favorite things that LEGO did throughout this entire year of 2021. And so, as 2022 draws ever closer, I figured what better way to celebrate an entire year of LEGO than counting down the top 10 best things they did. From minifigures to sets to themes, there's a lot to unpack here. So last episode we talked about my personal favorite top 10 best LEGO minifigures that were not part of Collectible minifigure series. That is to say, minifigures that appeared in standard retail sets. But now, it's time to talk about the best collectible LEGO minifigures they had to offer throughout the entire year of 2021. So throughout this whole year, we had another standard collectible minifigure series, we had a licensed Looney Tunes series, the Marvel series, and so much more. So I'm here to talk about the top 10 best offerings LEGO had throughout the collectible minifigures line. And so without further ado, let's just jump right into things and start off with number 10. Okay, so we had a ton of collectible minifigure series in 2021. We had, of course, Series 21, as well as the Looney Tunes series, a few Mario series, although I'm not really counting them in this list because they were buildable characters and not minifigures. We also had two different LEGO video series, as well as the famous LEGO Marvel Disney Plus collectible minifigure series. So let's kick things off with the first one here on our list is actually from the Looney Tunes CMF. So this CMF introduced a ton of new molds, new prints, but honestly only one of them really stood out to me, and that was, of course, Bugs Bunny. And to be completely honest, this figure is not necessarily really anything special. In fact, the printing on it isn't even really that good, because a lot of times the printing of the white on the light gray there just simply did not turn out too great, because you're printing a light color on a slightly darker shade. But what is really cool is getting such an iconic character in LEGO minifigure form after so many years. I personally was pretty shocked to hear that LEGO was doing a Looney Tunes license, and I'm actually pretty happy they did because a lot of these characters are incredibly iconic and it's really cool to get them in minifigure form. Now, Bugs Bunny himself does not actually come with a bunny tail element. Unfortunately, the bunny tail is just printed on the back there. They do have a sort of duck tail element that probably could have worked just fine, but instead they did just choose to print it, and essentially it is just a very basic figure. A set of legs, a torso, and a specially molded head. And obviously the dual molded head of the white and light gray here is easily the best part of the figure, perfectly capturing the character's license. He also does come with a standard carrot, which again isn't really anything special, but it is still nice to get. What I do find kind of funny is that in 2021, LEGO also released another specially molded minifigure bunny head mold. It's a little different from Bugs Bunny, you can see it right here for LEGO Video. It's nothing too relevant, I just thought it'd be kind of funny to point out that LEGO made not one, but two brand new minifigure scale bunny molds in the year of 2021. But honestly, beyond that, there's not much else I can say about Bugs Bunny. It's a very basic figure, he doesn't really have any crazy printing going on, it's just very well executed for exactly what the character is supposed to be. It's an iconic character, and it introduces a brand new dual molded head sculpt, which will almost certainly stay exclusive to this particular figure. And so with that, let's move on to number 9. So coming in at number 9 is a minifigure from the Marvel Studios collectible minifigure series, and that is White Vision. Now, White Vision is an excellently detailed minifigure. You can immediately see from the turnaround just how much detail went into this figure. From the dual molded legs to the printing on both the arms and the legs, this is about as detailed as you can make a single LEGO minifigure, and it looks pretty darn good. I really do love the way they did the gold outlines alongside the white on the light gray. It all in all just looks like a pretty interesting figure, but it's not perfect, and there are a few reasons why. For instance, this kind of suffers from the same issue as the Bugs Bunny figure, where you can clearly see that the white stripe on the arm there is really just not the same shade of white as the rest of the actual white plastic. It is kind of a problem because, again, LEGO has had notorious quality control issues when printing light colors on darker shades, and this one definitely falls victim with the white patch on the lower arm just being a much darker shade than the rest of the figure. The other major difference is that in the WandaVision show, the color of the stone on White Vision's head is actually blue and not orange. And now I am kind of willing to overlook this, particularly because in the final scenes of the show, it does kind of glow orange. We don't know if that's going to be the permanent color for the stone. I don't know if the next time he will actually appear in the MCU, will the stone be orange or blue? We don't really know, but as of right now, LEGO clearly was working off of concept art for this figure, hence why the stone is orange, but right now it is an inaccurate figure to WandaVision. The other major thing that I do want to point out here is that the head printing very awkwardly cuts off around the side there, and what is very unfortunate about this is that we do know that LEGO does have the technology to print on 360 degrees for a minifigure head. In fact, it's not very common, but they did actually print 360 degrees for a few Ninjago figures. All the way back around 2015-2016, we got a Tournament Zane with a 360 degree print around his head to allow the circuitry to actually continue all the way from the front to the back of his face, and we also got one for a special version of General Cryptor, also from Ninjago. So I don't personally really know why they chose not to do it for this figure. It is a pretty rare technique to be used. It really was basically only used in those Ninjago figures, so maybe there is some reason why they cannot do it, but as it is right now, it feels like a very glaring thing to just have the printing chop off, and if anything, I probably would have appreciated it if they chose to round it off a little bit, make it a little bit less abrupt, but as it is right now, as soon as you look at it from any other angle, it looks very, very awkward. Now, Vision does also come with the computer that was used to turn him on, which was used by Commander Hayward of S.W.O.R.D., which is pretty cool. I think it's just fine. It's an interesting print. It's a very show-specific print because it shows the hex around the town of Westview, so it definitely isn't really something you can use outside of WandaVision, but it is nice to get it as an accessory for this figure, especially because they could have easily just done Vision without an accessory and it would have worked just fine. But to wrap up this figure, I think that this comparison of him alongside the previous Vision figures is really all you need to see to show just how much better this figure is in comparison. It's really, really cool the way they've actually produced this with dual molding and sidearm printing, and I really do hope that sometime in the future, however unlikely it may be, they do a normal Vision with this level of printing because this is truly stellar. But with that, we can move on to number 8. And for number 8, we have our first minifigure from the Series 21 of the standard LEGO Own IP collectible minifigure series, and that is the Ancient Warrior. Now this is a really cool design. As you can see from the turnaround, he has printing on both the sides of his arms and legs, which looks really good. I do love the way the shield is also expertly detailed, which also matches up with the specialized new headdress mold, and he also gets a brand new sword mold as well, which is actually specifically supposed to represent some of the swords used for Aztec warriors. All in all, this is a pretty excellently detailed figure, featuring 2 brand new molds, and I'm very happy with how the figure actually turned out. Now the figure does actually have 2 different expressions, which I think is really nice to get. You can either have him as an angry scowling face or a happy smiling face depending on his mood. I think the angry one works better for the presentation of this character as a ferocious warrior, but I think it's just overall very nice we get 2 different expressions. However, not everything is perfect about this figure. One thing that really does annoy me is the way the shield is printed. As you can see, if he wants to hold the shield anywhere remotely close to his body, the printing on the shield is very obviously on the side. It's not actually being held face forwards. It's very annoying and very strange how they chose to print it this way. I really don't know why, because it just feels unnatural for him to hold out the shield such that the printing is the right way up, because as you can see here, when I turn the shield forwards, you actually have to twist it forwards to get the right printing, which means he kind of has to hold the shield at this very awkward, unnatural angle just to actually make it work. So I am not a big fan of the way this turned out. I really do think they could have easily solved this issue by just turning the print 90 degrees and making it such that he can hold the shield closer to his body, but still actually have the shield facing up. And if you do want him to be able to hold the shield out with the print facing upwards, you could easily still do that just by rotating his hand. So this is absolutely the more restrictive way of printing things, and I really am not a fan of the way they did the shield here. Other than that, though, I think it's really nice to get a full-on dual molded sword. It looks pretty fantastic, and really the only other thing I have to say about this particular figure is that it is very, very similar to an older minifigure that we got in one of the previous collectible minifigure series. I believe this was series 8.
Because I was looking through some old photos and it looks very, similar.
you can actually see there are very strict resemblances between them, from the azure color being used as highlights on the gold headdress to kind of a similar color scheme of a bare-chested minifigure but with a gold kind of new ornate headdress on the top there. There's just a lot of similarities between them, down to the fact that they have dark red pants and a shield, that this almost feels like a remake of an older character. I don't necessarily know if we needed one, and honestly I probably would have preferred if they went in a slightly different direction. Heck, even if they made a female version of the character just to spice things up, I think that would have been a good counterpart, because as it is, they kind of are just a very similar figure, and they work the same exact way. So this doesn't really bring anything new to the table, despite being a fantastic figure. And lastly, the only thing that I think this figure could have really benefited from are dual molded legs. If they moved the dark red shorts printing a little bit further down, I think that it would have looked a lot better if this actually had the dark red continue all the way around the back of the legs, because as it is right now, the back looks very, very bare because it is only printed on the sides and front of the legs. Other than that though, I'm very happy with this figure, and we can move on to number 7. And so coming in at number 7, we have our only minifigure from the LEGO Video collectible minifigures. Now this was a pretty hard choice, because Video had a lot of truly fantastic minifigures throughout the entire 2021 run. And since this probably is the last we're going to see of this iteration of Video, I really had to scour both CMF series to see which one was my personal favorite, and which one I felt rivaled even some of the other minifigs on this list. And ultimately, this may be a controversial choice, but I landed on the Karaoke Mermaid. And I personally really like this one for a number of reasons. For one, it recolors the 2017 LEGO Ninjago movie Coco hairpiece. This is particularly relevant because I long thought that the mold for this hairpiece had been destroyed, which means that because it didn't pop up since the LEGO Ninjago movie, I thought that LEGO just simply was not using the mold anymore. However, it's very important that we got this mold because there is a character in LEGO Ninjago who uses this hairpiece, but unfortunately we never got a physical representation for. And that is a casual version of Harumi from Season 8 Sons of Garmadon. We got a formal version, we got 3 different evil versions, but no casual version, which was the variant we spent the most time with in the show. So it feels very disappointing that we never got that minifigure, and for the longest time I thought the thing that was holding us back was because they no longer had the mold for this hairpiece. But apparently the mold is alive and well in 2021, so I really do hope that this means we may actually see one in the future for that character. But even beyond looking to the future, because of course this is kind of a meta reason as to why I like this figure that isn't really tied to the character itself, I just think that this is a pretty aesthetically pleasing figure in general, with a color scheme that really works and blends well together. First of all, it uses the brand new mold for 2021 introduced for LEGO Video for the mermaid piece. We actually got a few different recolors of this particular mermaid piece across Video, but I really do think that it's used the best here, and I think the color scheme is pretty fantastic. You have a beautiful purple blend that goes upwards to the dark pink, but still a hint of purple in the magenta robes, and of course you have the teal highlights. The teal hair features both magenta and purple glittery outlines, as well as the chopsticks in the back of the hair being the magenta color, and of course the boombox itself being in teal really just ties all of this together. All in all, the color scheme is probably one of my favorite things about this figure, and it's really accentuated by the beautiful printing that can be seen on the front and back of the torso and legs. I really love the Japanese-inspired koi fish that are swimming around the torso itself. You've got almost like a ninja shuriken as a necklace there, which also adds to the Japanese aesthetic and really does feel like with a few substitutions you could probably use this as a standard kimono. If you just found the right leg piece, and you'd probably be good to go. Now, even the back of this shows the 2 koi fish swimming in the pond, which I think is a really cool detail. It's a very ornate dress, but not too overcomplicated. It gets the point across with very simple colors and a great color scheme and blend from the darker colors to the brighter colors from the bottom to the top. I do think that Video was kind of overlooked because it got really poor reception of being some sort of app tie-in with really expensive sets, but honestly, I really love the minifigures, and this is one of the best from the Collectible series, so it had to be included in this list. And so, moving on, let's now take a look at number 6. At number 6, we return to Series 21 of Collectible Minifigures, and this is the Centaur Warrior from Collectible Minifigs. Now actually, Harry Potter introduced the brand new Centaur mold all the way back in 2020 when they actually introduced the Centaurs in the Forbidden Forest set, but unfortunately that was in a licensed set, which means that you would actually have to buy multiples of a larger set to just get multiples of the Centaur piece. And what's really awesome is that LEGO actually included it in a standard collectible minifigure, which means it's cheaper than ever to get the Centaur mold, which is something I really do love, and actually one that I got quite a few copies for because it's such a good mold and I really do like the way it's used. Now this is actually a recolor of the original Centaur mold. Thankfully they did not just use the dark brown version, but they went with a slightly more friendly version with this dark orange color right here. It definitely is something that feels a little bit friendlier and more fitting with the standard non-licensed LEGO theme. This figure also includes some print on the sides of the arms, which looks really great. Although, to be honest, the head and hairpiece are pretty standard, and honestly, I do kind of wish that they went with a slightly different hairpiece. My biggest reason for this is because this character is wielding a bow, which means that to use this particular hairpiece, you can't actually turn the head and make it look like the character is firing the bow without making the hair look really awkward. They specifically chose a hairpiece, which means you cannot rotate the head, which is very, very unfortunate to me because, again, it just feels like a missed opportunity to actually pick any other hairpiece that did not descend down too far to allow you to actually turn the head. The Centaurs in Harry Potter actually did use a better hairpiece. Despite using longer hair, they had one that actually sloped past the back of the neck, which means you could actually slightly rotate their heads and still look like the hair moved with them. Unfortunately, you cannot say the same for this. It's very much fixed in one direction, just head-on, straight hairpiece. You cannot turn her head, which is a little disappointing. The head also does feel a little bit generic for what it is. It's just a standard female minifigure head with a hint of freckles, but honestly, this is a head that could have been used in LEGO City. And I do feel that if they had the budget to create a new head, which they absolutely did because this is a brand new head, they probably could have gone for something a little bit more fantasy inspired, even if it was just in the form of, say, a headband that mirrored the arm bracelets. I think could have done wonders in improving the quality of this figure. But as it is right now, it really does feel like the legs are what most of the budget went into, maybe the arms because they do have arm printing, the torso is pretty basic, and the head and hair are just things that we've either seen before or look like stuff we've seen before. So, good bottom half and kind of mediocre upper half, which makes this kind of fit in this kind of middle near the bottom spot on this list. But with that, we can now move on to number 5. And with number 5, we have another minifigure from the Marvel Studios collectible minifigure series because, let's face it, these offered some of the best CMFs the entire year. This one is the What If Zombie Hunter Peter Parker. So, you can see right here, this is basically the Disney Parks Avengers Campus version of Spider-Man, but just with a cape on, which I think is really cool because this figure serves a dual purpose. If you want probably the most detailed version of Spider-Man we've seen to date, and one that fits in well with MCU dioramas, you can get this and not put the cape on. If you actually want the one to represent the episode of What If, then slap the cape on and you're good to go. What's even better is that this minifigure includes 2 heads. It includes a Spider-Man head, but it also includes a Tom Holland Peter Parker head. For the first time, we are getting a specialized head made specifically to resemble Tom Holland, or at least to resemble the MCU Peter Parker. And that, I think, is really fantastic. He sports a brand new hairpiece in a new color, which actually was used in the Queer Eye set, but it's really nice to get it for this figure here. Really perfectly fits the Tom Holland look, in my opinion, and even beyond just the Peter Parker head, I think the expressions themselves are really great. I love the slightly worried expression he has there. It just looks really funny to me. The amount of detail that went into creating this very accurate head, I think looks very great, very movie and show accurate. And beyond that, this is just packed with a lot of excellent detail. It has dual molded legs, but also printing on the sides of the legs, printing on the arms that for a slightly brighter color printed on the darker blue, it actually looks pretty good. That red is almost perfectly the actual LEGO color of red, which I think is really great. It comes with a full-on web to fire as well as the cape. So this is jam-packed with accessories, packed with detail. It's basically the perfect Spider-Man minifigure, and honestly, it makes the Spider-Man No Way Home figures pale in comparison, and those are already really good. So this just truly went above and beyond with the prints on the arms, the legs, the dual molding, that makes this the perfect Spider-Man minifigure. Now there is one minor complaint that I do have, and that is something that makes no sense to me, because This year in 2021, LEGO introduced a fantastic new rubberized cape mold for Doctor Strange. We actually talked about this in the top 10 best non-CMF minifigures of 2021 video. It was a perfectly rubbery cape, fits the MCU Cape of Levitation perfectly, looks amazing on Spider-Man, and they chose to use the standard cloth cape here. And not only the standard cape, it is the standard one with the older style of cloth, which actually is easier to crease and wrinkle. Which obviously is a major problem because if people are trying to feel these in the bags, it's very easy to crease up and wrinkle the cape. I cannot fathom as to why LEGO chose to not include the brand new piece for this figure. When this figure first leaked, I thought for sure they would be including the new cape, but for whatever reason, they did not. The only reason I can think of is that maybe due to scheduling differences, they designed the cape for the new Doctor Strange movie and maybe just didn't have it ready when the CMF went into production. Who knows as to why that happened? We know that most of these shows featured in this series were actually supposed to come out last year, so maybe this minifig series was also supposed to come out last year, and that's why they didn't have the cape piece ready. All in all though, it does feel like a major missed opportunity to not include the fantastically molded new element for the collectible minifigure series. It's honestly the kind of thing you would think that LEGO would make for a CMF, so I don't know why they didn't put it in here. I feel like that would have really made the figure a lot better, and also made the value of this figure go up a lot because people would want to get duplicates to upgrade their past Doctor Strange minifigures, and this would have been the cheapest way to get it if they actually included it. So maybe LEGO's just being smart and locking it in a much more expensive set, but honestly just feels like a big missed opportunity to me. But then, moving on to number 4, we have one more minifigure from Series 21. This is a very nostalgic figure, and it is the Space Police Officer. So LEGO has this habit of their collectible minifigure series, at least the original ones, paying homage to classic LEGO minifigures. One of my favorite minifigures from the CMF series of old is the Johnny Thunder remade figure, which features some excellent printing and dual molded legs to complement all the other famous Johnny Thunder icon figures that came in the past. And this is no different, because this time we are getting a minifigure that is specifically patterned off of the original LEGO Classic Space Police 1 police officer in the exact colors, and what's even cooler is when you remove his armor, it is just an upgraded version of that police outfit. So let's put all the accessories back and take a look at the turnaround for this figure, which is truly fantastic. He is packed with accessories, and by packed, I mean packed. So much so that I had to hang the handcuffs on his arm because there just wasn't any other place to put them. He has a gun, a riot shield, 2 riot batons, and the handcuffs, and that's not to mention the removable armor and helmet. This is just a truly armored up, accessoried up LEGO minifigure. And what's awesome is that you can see that this is detail from all angles. He has excellent dual molded boots that isn't just the standard dual molding, it actually does have some slightly angular geometries to the upward boots here, which do actually make the figure stand out. The boots look really good on this figure, and overall the gunmetal armor, while it is a piece we've seen before, does really accentuate this figure quite well, and I do actually like the reuse of the LEGO City Space helmet, which I think works very well for collectible minifigures and for the more sci-fi version of LEGO Space, which has full dual molding in the white and black. I do love the printing of the police badge on the top of the helmet and the riot shield. I just think it really works for the Space Police theme, despite the emblem actually being a new emblem because Space Police 1 didn't really have an emblem. I think this fits perfectly well. It's kind of both retro as well as modern, and of course, as we remove all the accessories here, you can see he can either wield his batons. He also has 2 different faces, either an angry face or a happy face, which is meant to be an upgrade to the classic LEGO Smiley. Love that reference there. And of course, my favorite thing about this figure is actually when you remove the armor piece, you can see right here, that is just straight up a Futuron Classic Space Police LEGO torso. Just upgraded for 2021 with some gold emblems, gold colors, and an excellent police text on the back, which we didn't get in the original version because LEGO couldn't print minifigures on the back then. So all in all, this is a beautifully made figure, a great homage to classic eras of LEGO, and truly one of my favorite collectible minifigures of this year. I love it when LEGO actually does retro versions of minifigures. It really is great that they're paying homage and respect to the past figures that came before, and I hope that in the future, original collectible minifigure series will continue to do stuff like this and upgrade some of the most vintage LEGO figures in modern times. And with that, we now move into our top 3. And coming in at number 3, we return to the Marvel collectible minifigures, and with that we have Zombie Captain America. Now this was easily one of the most sought after figures of 2021 just in general. I mean, it's hard to rival the sheer amount of unique printing on this figure, dual molding. The concept of a zombie Captain America is just something that's cool despite him not really having that much screen time in What If. All in all, this is just a fantastically detailed and very desirable minifigure. Historically speaking, LEGO zombies have been very popular. The zombies from Monster Fighters, for example, fetch a very high price on the aftermarket, and the zombie minifigures from their CMF series are always typically some of the most popular in the wave. So it's no surprise to me that a mashup of zombies as well as the MCU makes a blockbuster figure. And this is a truly excellent minifigure. You can see full printing on both arms, both legs on the sides, as well as dual molding on either leg. He has this very nice tattered leg display that uses dual molding in a very good fashion. Using the dark blue as well as the lighter aqua color on the top really does sell the effect of this being ripped and torn pants. And what I think is really awesome about this model is that the aqua color printed on the dark blue looks amazing. I have no complaints because it looks basically about as good as you'd want it to look for a light color printed on a dark color of plastic. I complained earlier in this review of the other top 10 figures having a problem with white printed on light gray. This is arguably even harder to do right. It is aqua printed on dark blue, but somehow they managed to pull it off and it looks literally perfect, so I have no complaints there. And of course you can see the other leg as well has some excellent details, some gray molding and dirt scuffs as well, so all in all it is a truly excellently detailed figure from pretty much all angles. It does use a new print of the Captain America helmet, which is really nice because it does match the actual Captain America zombie figure, and what's really cool is that the shield itself as well as the helmet can actually double for a battle damaged Captain America. If you want to make a Captain America from Endgame, you can easily use the shield and helmet of this figure, maybe even one of the legs, and you have the perfect battle-damaged LEGO Captain America. And while the rest of the prints are fairly restrictive, you can't really use the half blue, half aqua leg really anywhere else, and obviously that torso is just meant to be the zombie Captain America specifically. I just think that it's a really good figure in general, even if it has somewhat limited uses. And I have seen a lot of people reuse the zombie head on this figure on other Marvel Zombies figures, so only time will tell if we're actually going to be getting more zombified LEGO Marvel characters, because of course, they just announced there will be a full-on Marvel Zombies TV show, so I'm sure LEGO will give us more of these in the future. They'd be stupid not to, and I cannot wait to see who else will join the ranks of Captain America zombified. But then, moving on to number 2, we have another variant of a Captain America-esque figure, Peggy Carter, aka Captain Carter from the What If series. The only reason why this figure is above the zombie Captain America figure is that to me, you can just do more with this figure and get a greater utility out of it. You see, those legs are not specific to Captain Carter whatsoever. You can buy a ton of this figure and just reuse the legs for Captain America. The same goes for the arms. The arm printing is basically the perfect Captain America arm printing for the MCU. So again, just get a ton of this figure and you can use it to upgrade your previous Captain America figures, which is actually something I plan to do. Of course, the torso isn't really something you can reuse, but honestly, if that's the only thing that you can't reuse out of this entire figure, I call that an absolute win. Even the hairpiece is really great for some vintage or classic styled LEGO female minifigures. The hairstyle is very much in the 1960s, 1980s kind of style of hairstyle, so I really do like this specialized brand new mold they created for Peggy Carter. It's a lot better than the other version of Peggy Carter they did for What If, which obviously came in a standard retail set, so it just wasn't as good, but I just really like how this figure looks all in all. And of course, it's complemented by the accessories. The Captain Carter shield is obviously very limited to this character, but I really do actually like the cosmic cube there. That's the special Tesseract element. They actually just colored 2 different 1x1 LEGO studs in the opalescent / satin color, which looks fantastic. It's probably the best Tesseract we've seen from LEGO yet, so I just really like this. It's leagues ahead from the clear 1x1 brick, and it does look and gain the effect really well for this specialized new kind of co-injection sort of new color for LEGO that they've introduced in recent years. Now, Peggy Carter does have two different faces. One of them is slightly happy and one of them is slightly angry, but I just think it's a useful head to have in general. Of course, the head is a little generic, but I don't really have too many complaints because the rest of the figure is truly fantastic. This has exactly the same amount of printing detail as the previous figure, but again, it's ranked higher because you can just use the pieces in more different applications. But with that, we have come to the #1 best collectible minifigure of 2021, and that is the new Captain America, Sam Wilson. Now, when images of this figure first were leaked, I almost could not believe my eyes. I was utterly blown away by the sheer amount of detail packed into this figure, which is probably the most amount of detail you can get for any figure whatsoever. It has dual molded arms, dual molded legs, printing on the arms and printing on the legs. It has a brand new mold for a wing element with articulatable wings. It features full prints on the edges of the specialized flag pieces for the wings. It features a brand new mold for the hairpiece, which is infinitely useful for many other characters, and it features a fantastic headpiece that perfectly replicates the Sam Wilson Captain America character. All in all, what is not to like about this figure? It is probably the best minifigure they've done just purely from a technical standpoint, I want to say almost ever. I have never seen a minifigure with this sheer amount of detail and printing. You really can only see these on custom figures or knockoff figures, nothing that LEGO's ever done officially, well, until today. This is easily the best figure of 2021. It's the best figure that I've ever seen from any collectible minifigure series, just in terms of the level of detail, the level of technical prowess made to achieve the detail on this figure. It's just so cool to see Sam Wilson, Captain America, get the amazing figure he deserves after debuting in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier with this awesome new outfit. So let's deconstruct this figure a little bit because first of all, it includes a brand new MCU-styled Captain America shield, which is perfect for the MCU. He's not the only figure to include this. The Bucky figure from this series also did include it, but it is nice to get it in this series. But removing that and even removing the wings, you can immediately see that on the back, they also have a special surprise because they printed the brand new corner tile with a new print to signify the Red Wing drone. So not only does he have all of that I just mentioned before, but he also has a detachable drone that works perfectly as the MCU Red Wing. So that is awesome to see. And let's remove the wings now. So setting everything aside, you can just see the sheer amount of detail that continues even to the back of this figure. They did not need to have this much detail on the back because you're rarely going to ever display this figure without the wings on. But they still chose to do it, and that is truly a commitment to a level of detail that I have not seen from LEGO before. Now, of course, the figure does look great with the wings off. You can get a lot of great poses out of this. It looks truly fantastic, and again, it just represents the most amount of detail I've ever seen on any LEGO minifigure ever. And honestly, I am a little confused because we will be getting a Captain America 4 movie starring Sam Wilson. I am sure they're going to keep the suit the same. I'm also sure we're going to get LEGO sets based off of it, so I'm almost kind of worried that any minifigure that comes in a standard retail set will be a disappointment compared to this fantastic version, especially if it's the same suit. Literally the only complaint I have about this figure, and it's a minor one, is that, again, as I complained with for the White Vision figure, the printing does not extend to 360 degrees. The very clear kind of goggle piece that he has around his head is just cut off very obviously around the midpoint of the head section. And again, we know LEGO does have the technology to do this, they, for whatever reason, just did not. So that's my only big complaint. Everything else, though, just perfect. The perfect figure, perfect amount of detailing, truly the most technically advanced printing we've ever seen on a minifigure and dual molding to date. What a way to end 2021, and what a collectible minifigure. Just showcasing this figure alongside all other versions of the Falcon, both comics and MCU, just shows how far LEGO has come in terms of producing figures like these. And with that, we have wrapped up my personal favorite top 10 best collectible minifigures of 2021. From the Looney Tunes series to Series 21 to the Marvel series to LEGO Video, we were treated to a lot of deluxe minifigures this year. And I really hope that LEGO can keep up this amazing trend in 2022, because this is probably the one year where I have been the happiest and most excited for collecting collectible minifigures. And a lot of that, I will say, is in part due to the Marvel Collectible series. I am an MCU superfan, so it was very exciting to me to hear that LEGO was doing a Marvel series. Fingers crossed they make an Infinity Saga series, because there's a lot of material they could get out of the old movies. But all in all, this was a great showing for LEGO from 2021, some of the best minifigures we've seen pretty much ever, and I cannot wait to see what the future has in store. Alright, and that about wraps up this top 10 video of my personal favorite and, in my opinion, best collectible minifigures that LEGO had to offer throughout the entire year of 2021. Of course, this list is just my opinion, and I'd love to hear yours, so definitely share your thoughts down in the comments below if you agree or disagree, or if there are any minifigures that you wish made the list. Of course, stay tuned to Duckbricks for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon, and thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye for now.